No sé si Ana está por aquí también.
Hola Javi, ¿qué tal?
Hola Ana, ¿qué? ¿Cómo vas por el extranjero?
Pues muy bien, estoy aquí preparada para hablar de Open Science en la siguiente ponencia que tenemos ahora. Esta sesión va a ser en inglés, así que damos comienzo, ¿no?
Todo tuyo.
Muchas gracias. Thank you, Javi. So welcome everyone to this session, which is about open science, the science of the future. And I am very glad to have you all here with a panel of experts in the issue, which will be exploring and talking about an issue which will have a great deal of impact in the future. So let me introduce the speakers of the session, which are Pilar Rico Castro, Marie Herbert, Esteban Romero Frías, Pablo García Sánchez, and Hildrun Walter as representative from Arqus. I am Ana Valverde, postdoc researcher at the University of Nottingham, and I am very glad to introduce first to Pilar Rico Castro. She is head of open access, repositories, and academic journals at FECIT, the Spanish Foundation of Science and Technology. Pilar holds a PhD in government and public administration from the Universidad Complutense de Madrid. Her main role is to support the Spanish Ministry of Science and Innovation in the development, implementation, and evaluation of the national and European policies for open access and open science. So welcome, Pilar. Our second speaker is Marie Herbert. She has held a position of curator at Claude Bernard University Library in Lyon, France, for nearly 3 years after working as a journalist in European affairs. She heads the data and documentation team within the library's research service department and serves as the project manager of the data platform, specializing in chemistry and physics. She works in partnership with researchers in chemistry to raise awareness among them to new practices, such as the use of electronic lab notebooks. So welcome, Marie. Our third speaker is Esteban Romero Frías, who is since 2019 the Director for Participation and Social Innovation at the University of Granada. He holds a PhD in accounting. He is currently Associate Professor at the Department of Accounting and Finance at the University of Granada. His research focuses on technology, science evaluation, social network analysis, and innovation. Since 2015, he is director of the awarded Medialab from the University of Granada that I encourage you to follow. I will drop a message in the chat, which is a crossroad for research, innovation, and exploration of new forms of knowledge in a digital society. So welcome, Esteban. Then we have Pablo García Sánchez. He is an associate professor at the Department of Computer Architecture and Technology at the University of Granada. His research interests are the distributed and parallel systems by inspired algorithms and computational intelligence in video games. He is the director of the Office for Free Software since 2021. This office offers a series of services to the university community related to free software and open culture, providing technical support, training, STEM promotion, IT management, and conversation to open formats among others. So welcome, Pablo. And finally, as representative from Arqus, with whom we have organized this roundtable, we have Hildrun Walter, who is researcher in science communication in the Center for Society, Science and Communication at the University of Graz. She has her background in biology, but since 2018, she has focused on science communication, citizen science, and learning research. She has been working on the Arqus Openness Task Force for our work package dealing with stakeholders engagement. So a brief introduction of how the roundtable is going to be. So then I will pass over to Hildrun Walter, which will be moderating most of the roundtable. The speakers will explain their field. So we'll speak about introductory notes to open science, what do they do, etc. And after that, we will have a roundtable for answering questions that you all asked in social media.
Thank you for the invitation today to participate in this roundtable about open science. Let me introduce briefly what is FECID and what we do, and what is the role that we play in the national system for R&D regarding open science policies. The Spanish Foundation for Science and Technology, FECID, is a public institution depending on the Ministry for Science and Innovation. And what we do is to support the ministry in the design, the implementation, and the evaluation of the open access and the open science policy, both at the national level and at the European level. I would like to address your attention to the fact that open access and open science are different concepts that were born in different times, and they have a different semantic length. The open access concept was born before. It was born at the beginning of the decade of 2000, and it was created mostly by librarians, by academic librarians that saw that prices for accessing research contents to the institutions and therefore to researchers were increasingly high year after year, and the costs that commercial publishers were charging libraries for that access were increasing above the national prices rates. So that is the origin, the inception of the concept of open access, and what it means. It's the right of free online access to all research outcomes. In that very moment, research outcomes were only considered research publications and research data. No further research outcomes were considered in the open access policy. As I said, it's a concept that was developed and created by librarians, and they designed a specific public policy that was very successful in terms of policy making, since both the European Commission and the national government, besides some other countries in our European and in the European area, developed very specific policies that obliged researchers to archive a copy of the research that had been published by commercial editors into an open access repository. But the open access policy, besides the good intention that was underpinning it, created some other pitfalls and some other malfunctions to the R&D systems that were not envisaged when it was designed, when the policy was designed. Mainly because the concept was not designed by researchers, but by librarians, and they did not have into consideration some of the processes that were involving the research communication. If we think in what we do as researchers, we can identify very easily 4 main processes. We do apply for funding, so we do some funding, either submission for projects or evaluation. So it is the funding process, the execution process. When we do our research, we do communicate the results of the research, and we do evaluate the results of this research as evaluators. So there are 4 main processes: funding, execution, communication, and evaluation of research activities. This is a circular process, and it starts all over again. When the open access policy was developed, the only process that was taken into consideration was the communication one. The focus of the concept and the focus of the policies was very much centered only into the communication process, whereas some other processes, like mainly the evaluation one, was not taken into consideration. That drove us to a situation where despite of the fact that the open access policy tried to solve some problems, it created a new ones. And this is why the open science policy was created. It was not created by librarians, as a difference from the open access policy, but by the European Commission in 2016. It was the former European Commission, it was Carlos Moeda's team, the former commissioner for R&D, that created the open science policy, and it encompassed what open access means, but it enlarged the concept to include some other aspects of the R&D systems, like, for instance, it included among the outcomes of the research open license software. It also included some other concepts like open peer review as a way to behave among the communities of researchers. It included open resources for education, citizen science in the two versions of engaging communities in the research activities and communicating scientific results to the public. And the main concept that was included in the open science concept that was very different from the open access was new rewards and incentives to the scientific activities. It was an attempt to try to overcome these new problems and these issues that had been created by the open access policy in their try to solve the situation of commercial publishers being abusive above the R&D systems. So far, there are a strong open access policy at the European level. Those of you that are beneficiaries of European projects have a specific mandatory clauses that you have to follow up in your grant agreements regarding open access. At the national level, there is also an open access policy, but it's not that strong as the European is, since there is a way to overcome the mandate of open access archiving. And regarding open science, the European Commission has been leading the open science movement, and it has been very active in promoting open science as the new paradigm of doing science. It has had a very strong impact among research communities all over the world. Also, the OECD has designed an open science policy, and the UNESCO has recently launched an open science strategy for all the members of the United Nations. At the national level, the open science strategy has been developed, but it has not been launched so far. We in FECID have been working in an open science strategy, but some things have been done so far, but there is no, we could not give you the heading of the open science strategy, since it is not a compact document, a consolidated piece of public decision so far, but there are some things that are being done. Regarding the National Funding Agency and regarding the National Evaluation Agency. What we do in FECID is to help out researchers to fulfill their obligations regarding open access and open science. We work directly with research communities, and we also work with research communities through European project offices and through libraries. So this is what we do, and I am very looking forward the round table that is going to follow this short presentation. Thank you very much.
So just so that you can better grasp what is the context of what is my professional context, I'm working in Lyon University, which is specializing in So chemistry occupies a special place here at the academic level, because we have a lot of chemistry labs, and Lyon and its region is also known for what we call the chemical valley. That is to say, we have a very large corridor, like 10 kilometers long, known for the implementation of international chemistry firms. Such as Total, Arkema, Rhodia, and so on and so forth. And so there is a lot of partnership and connection between the academic field and the industry world. And it has a huge impact on the way open science is received here among the chemistry community. I will explain why after. Another point that I wanted to mention as well is that it's a university that's mainly known for its high ranking in terms of depositing of patents. So we rank third in this field, and it does have another impact on the way open science is considered. So what is open science to me? Open science might be seen as something very broad. Usually it's called an umbrella. Here you have 7 items that may represent what open science is, whether it is applied to publications. That's why there is the Le Journal des Savants, which is the first journal that was launched in the 17th century, at the time when scholars exchanged mostly through letters before the emerging of journals, and they found that it was way more efficient to communicate science through journals. Right now, when we talk about open science applied to scholar communication, it means getting access to articles online without any paywall. Then open science might apply to data. This is the second image with the molecule and the spectra. It might also be applied to software and codes. I will let Pablo elaborate on this theme. It might refer as well to protocols, which is something that biologists and chemists rarely want to share. They feel pretty reluctant because it's as if they were sharing what is the most precious for them. It's like a grandma's recipe that should be kept secret. Open science might refer to citizen science when it deals with reaching out people in order to sensitize them about scientific issues. It might refer to open peer review when authors have the possibility to know who is reviewing their articles.
So, Marie, if you don't mind, I'm going to pass over to Esteban, and then we will see if some of the issues can be addressed in the roundtable.
More than any other year, I feel a JIFFI supporter. I'm part of the movement, let's say like that, because also I have just registered for to be a PhD candidate in philosophy, so I should be in both sides. But let me just share some ideas about what we do and about citizen science and social innovation, particularly on the connection of those ideas with social science and humanities. So just let me, okay. So why citizen science? Just some brief ideas about this. Why it's so important now? Because this is very much connected to the movements on participation, citizen innovation, social innovation that we are living in our society. So first of all, the uncertainty that we are living. We need to manage ignorance, and we recognize that there are multiple knowledges, and therefore we need to connect the different actors who hold that knowledge in order to generate new knowledge and to learn from each other. So it's important to integrate the multiple forms of intelligence. Just to mention some of them, collective intelligence, the intelligence of the experts like scientists, for example. Also now we are talking about algorithmic intelligence, the political intelligence. So there is a variety, of knowledge out there that we need to somehow reconnect. This is also an opportunity to have a more democratic science. So citizen science is also a kind of commitment with our society, and also it recognizes the need to build multiple connections, and to have more horizontal relationships in our world. So there is also a commitment with the local and the global, the ethics of care that are really important. And finally, this idea that I think is very important is to understand science as a commons. This is not a private good, not just a public good, but something that is managed by the community. And citizen science, it's probably the best approach to this idea of science as a commons. Therefore, I think that probably, as Anna, you mentioned just before, we are talking about the science of the future. When we talk about citizen science, I've always thought on humanities, social science, and let's say the hard science. But indeed, I think that it's quite often that we forget about humanities and social science. So some people work using these kind of terms like citizen humanities and citizen social science. This is important. Mainly some examples that I can share are about this topic, and I guess that also most of you are working on those areas. There are some connections in citizen science, and here there are some ideas that I would like to discuss, but I will leave this for the discussion that we will have after these presentations. So just let me skip this slide. Just to give you some ideas, a citizen science project developed around different dimensions, like coordination, for example, to set the agenda of a project, of a scientific project. Participation, it's very important, is essential to citizen science, and we need to pay attention to who are participating, because also that could be a source for different bias in our research, and also different sources that will enrich what we are doing, our knowledge. Community, it's very important. You will set a team of people, researchers, non-researchers, and at the end you are building a community that has different incentives to work together. So it's important. Evaluation of the citizen science projects, but at the same time also evaluation of the results of the scientific production that came out of citizen science project, something that probably will be very important for you in order to develop your career. This is connected to entrepreneurship, and I prefer to say to innovation, not to social innovation, one of the ideas of the presentation. And finally, locality, this idea that science happens in a place. The community is in a place. It's true that in these years of pandemic, we have realized that a citizen science project can be more global than ever, but it's true that this is very important to keep in mind. So social innovation, here you have some ideas about what this is. I will share the presentation just when I finish in the chat. But just let me share the second part of the presentation. That is what we do at Medialab, because this is a service at the University of Granada. We are the Directorate for Participation and Social Innovation, and also the Medialab, that is a research laboratory for digital culture and society. Mainly, we are based on participatory projects with different institutions. We promote participation and social innovation at the university, and most of our projects could be somehow characterized as citizen science somehow. We are part of the Vice Rectorate for Political Science, Institutional Policy and Planning. This is our website, it's medialab.ugr.es. So just please visit this space, and you will see that mainly we define ourselves as an innovation lab, as a social innovation lab. Why? Because we try to think together in communities. We try to do experimentation, to do prototyping in our hypothesis, to reflect, and to be very oriented to action. So this is very important to us. We live in a digital culture. We try always to have a very strong digital identity in everything we do, and we connect all our actions to complex problems and challenges of our society. So basically, that's why we call ourselves a social innovation lab. These labs are also the place for many scientific, citizen science projects. Just to give you an example, in the past years, Medialab Prado has been just a reference in some citizen science projects in our country, and they are, for example, also a laboratory like us. Here you have some of the ideas that are in the baseline of our action, but basically just let me share some of those participatory projects that are not only projects that are initiatives of our own, but also part of the action of the University of Granada. Facultad Zero, for example, was an experiment that we did, a participatory experiment that started in 2018, where we had more than 300 people at the University of Granada thinking about the future of the university using methodologies that we could consider methodologies for citizen science in social science. So here you have a picture of those times where we could be without mask. So yeah, and what happened in 2020? In 2020, we just transformed this project into a participatory project and a bottom-up approach, where we had more than 25 universities in our country, and some of them also in Latin America, sharing materials and sharing ideas about how to face the pandemic that we were living. So we tried to generate knowledge from that participatory space that was Facultad Zero, and that you can still check online in facultadzero.org. So, for example, these are some of the conferences that we promoted in Spain, and in our university, for example, we had more than 20 people just sharing what they did during those 2 months that we had of lockdown. Some dialogues with students from 12 universities, for example, some workshops. Here we work with the Yo Sigo Publicando initiative that I think that you all know, with Daniel Torres, and something very important for us and for a citizen science project, the digital identity. Without technology, it's very difficult to develop one project like this, because at the end it's about social impact and about building communities. This Lab in Granada is also like a kind of citizen laboratory to generate innovation for the city, in this case for Granada and the province. And the idea is to have active citizens that are capable of identifying different projects, ideas to improve the city. So this has been used in very different areas, for example, in tourism, as I will show you. And is this idea of a kind of interconnected brain, that we have with all the expatriates, Granadinos or Granadinos in around the world, that can share what they see and to improve our environment. So this is also a resource that you can use at the University of Granada. Just email us, and you can also use it as a kind of resource for teaching. This is one project we had with the city hall, with the local government, about tourism, with this kind of citizen approach in this platform. And also during the pandemic, we also transformed this Lab in Granada in the ugrencasa.labingranada.org in order to share ideas and experiences about the lockdown. So it's a kind of memory of those days. This is another project that is based in this idea of participation, not only because we think about participation around the law that we have in Andalusia for citizen participation, but it's also a participatory platform that you can check. Here you have some images of this project. This is another project that is built on the ideas of citizen science, universities for public innovation, because at the end this is about how we can do knowledge transfer in order to improve our territory, let's say. So at the end, citizen science is connected with this idea. Finally, just to show you this project that is called No Metrics, and it was a project funded by the BBV Bank in Spain. And basically what we did was trying to recognize the value of those people working with digital artifacts in science, many of them doing co-creation projects and citizen science projects. So recently also we changed the name, and now we talk about Red No Metrics, a network for citizen science and for digital science. And just to conclude, just to tell you that we have a resource at the University of Granada that is the Medialab UGR. It's a digital radio that is a great opportunity to disseminate what you are doing in teaching and science, and just to invite you to this contest that we have. You have 2 months to prepare your podcast, and we are also, I mean, we have as a prize some filming subscriptions for 1 year. So yes, please do it. I think it's great to show what you are doing in science and also in your teaching activities. Basically, I won't tell you about this because probably I already took more than 5 minutes, but yeah, here's some picture to finish with of one of the activities that we did on digital humanities. Basically, citizen science is about somehow communities and about a new way, new form of governance of science. So Anna, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Esteban. It's always good to see all those happy faces on screen. And I really encourage you to have an eye on Medialab, which create great content all the time.
First of all, I want to thank you all for inviting me to this roundtable. It is my first time collaborating with JIFFI. I heard a lot about JIFFI when I was working as a professor in University of Cadiz, and I was to participate in JIFFI when I was a PhD student. So congratulations on this this event that you are making every year better. Okay, so I prepared a few slides to describe the concept and philosophy after the free and open source software and its relationship with open science and citizen science. Well, before starting, I want to describe what we do at the Oficina de Software Libre, the office for free software at the University of Granada. It's an office dependent of the rectorate delegation for the digital university. And we offer several services for all the members of the university. I don't know if you guys have ever heard about the Office for Free Software, but this office is not only for computer people. It's for everybody in the community. Not only for the University of Granada, but we try to extend our services and our vision more than the community of the university. We try to help people to discover new software alternatives to this proprietary software, because I will explain what exactly is free software now, but it can offer a lot of advantages for universities and for people and for society in general. We also help everybody to by giving support. For example, if you install some free software program like Linux or LibreOffice, or you have any issue, you can call us and we will help you. We also offer different workshops and courses and every other formal training to professors, students, and everybody is free to attend to our courses and activities. We also, another important thing we do is recycling. If you guys have some older laptops or older computers in your classrooms that you are going to throw to the dumpster, please call us before, because we will pick up all these computers and we will install Linux, because Linux requires less resources than Windows, and we can give these computers a new life. So once we repair and install Linux in these laptops and computers, we offer them to several non-governmental associations, high schools. Everybody can apply to receive for free this kind of material. And also we offer the service of document conversion. If you use LibreOffice or other free software, you know that Microsoft Word is a proprietary document format. You have to pay for a Microsoft Word in order to edit properly a file. So we also offer to all the University of Granada the possibility to convert all these documents in Word to LibreOffice. LibreOffice is free. but in this case, it's free as a bird, but also free as a beer. So you don't have to pay anything to use LibreOffice and use this kind of documents. Okay, we also have several programs trying to reduce the gender gap in technological degrees by organizing every year the technological campus for girls, and also increase the interest in children in STEM careers by organizing the children campus also in summer. Okay, look at this slide. You know, the most cited paper is this one by Lowry et al. That it has more than 3,100 citations. That's a lot of citation. But this package called Matplotlib, that if you use Python or you create fancy graphs and plots and a lot of figures for your papers, there are more this number, more than this number of uses. So a lot of people is collaborating in creating this package. A lot of scientists are contributing to software, to free software and libraries and frameworks and packages and algorithms that they don't get the recognition of the work. They only we only used to only measure our impact by the number of citations. But the creators of Matplotlib, look the impact they made. They made a lot of impact that is not being measured in positions, in grants, in projects, etc. So this is one of the issues we would like to discuss in this round table, but also in the framework of Arqus project, we are also discussing about how to assess the scientists that are contributing to free software as a very important part of the open science cosmos. Okay, but you will be asking, what is free software? Okay, free software can be resumed in these 4 freedoms. You can run the program as you wish. You can see the source code of the program. I don't know how Microsoft Word works, but I know how LibreOffice works because I have access to the source code. Also, I have the right, the freedom to redistribute these the copies of this software, and also modify this software to improve it, or because I found an error or whatever. Okay, but what are the difference between free software or open source? Have you ever heard this difference? Well, the free concept is free as a bird, as I previously said. It's more a philosophical approach to the distribution of software, while open is more technical. Okay, we want to open the source to improve in our company, or we want to fix errors, or find some security issues and that. So there are these 2 visions of the free and open source. They are very similar, but they have this one is more philosophical, another is one more technical. And this is a very important issue related with the licenses. Depending on the license you are going to apply to your software, you will have some rights and some protections. One, for example, the GPL license gives you the opportunity to everybody that wants to use your software are commanded to also release their source. But if you use the MIT license, you can release your software for free, and everybody could get it and put in their project without releasing their code and that. And also the Creative Commons license is another important license that can be applied not to software, but your figures, your text. It's more, well, there are some licenses for software, and other ones there are for other kind of media, your videos and that. They're very important, and you have to decide which one to use and which one to apply in your research and your dissemination.
I would like you, because we've been talking about open science, but you haven't really defined it. Can I ask you in 1 or 2 sentences, what is open science for you? And why do you think it is very important? And
Okay.
and last question, what are the practical implications of open science for students?
Okay. Well, there is a no common approach. What is the definition of open science? There are several definitions in the literature describing the several parts of the whole in this. But in my opinion, open science is the process of doing science where every step of the scientific method is open. Since you start doing some kind of research, everything should be open and accessible to the rest of the members. But not only scientists, not only your colleagues, but all the society. All the society should be able to see what are you doing. Because when the usual scientific method, you know, establish an hypothesis, perform experiment, blah, blah, and the last step is dissemination of results. You publish the paper, and that's the first time I realized what you've been doing, because I got your paper. But I would like to know how this paper was started. What was your first experiment that you discarded? What did you find in the middle? What are the reviews of this paper? How do you address it? The reviews of this paper, and of course, the paper it also should be in an open way, not behind a paywall. Okay. In my case, for example, and as I am a computer scientist, when I publish a paper, I don't not only publish the paper, but I also publish the source code of my experiments. So that is related with the second part of your question. If you share, I usually read a lot of papers and I implement a lot of other algorithms. But when I get a paper and the paper says, this is my algorithm, writing in formal mode, you know, with all the mathematical equations and that. But here is the source code. I can say, okay, I can download and run the algorithms in seconds. In the other case, I have to implement by hand all the equations and all that stuff. So I will get more inclined to reproduce your work if you are sharing your code than manually writing that. So probably you will get more citations by sharing this. And also, if you are sharing your data or your data sets, I will download the data set and analyze. So you will get another citation. You will get more visibility than just publishing the paper. But also another benefits of using it, you will get more organized. Since the beginning, if you are going to open all your research process, you will get organized. As Marie has commented, these notebooks for a chemist, if you write everything in your notebook with a pen and a paper, you will forget everything. You will forget the notebook in your lab. Where is my notes? But if you publish everything in an electronic notebook, like the ones that Marie presented, you will get everything better organized. And also, because everything is open, you will go back to improve. And being open, other people could help you. For example, I started writing my thesis in a public repository. Everybody could see how I was reading my thesis. While I was reading my thesis, I get some comments from other researchers that were reading my thesis before being published, saying, "Hey, Pablo, we found this typo here. You should mention this. You should add this reference." So my thesis was improved to be for the process of being open. Also, you will learn, if you are a student, you will learn how to disseminate better. You will learn what a DOA is, what are the repositories, what is Archive. There are a lot of concepts that you will learn if you start doing this. And finally, I think you will align on what Europe wants. You know, the new Europe Horizon demands you that publish your source code, and not only your source code, but all the data generated in your projects. When you get a European project grant, you have to define a release plan of your data. So if you from the beginning start how to do it, for example, collaborating in University of Granada, you can collaborate with DigiBook, that is depends on the library. They can help you about how to disseminate your data and which repositories to use. And I think another important thing, just to finish this, there are some movements in this aspect, because some positions are starting to measure your open science stuff. You know, in Universidad of Granada or other university, you apply for a position to be a professor, and they always measure the number of JCR journals. Okay, you have 25 archive papers, so you get these points. But for example, in Universidad of Granada, you will get points for this position if you have free software. There is a small part in the scoring of the position of University of Granada that's a number of projects released by free software. And other universities are starting to doing the same. They also, for example, they also measure if you are using open educational resources, that if you are participating in MOOCs. So I think Europe is moving right now to this new direction, but also the ANECA is also starting to not only focus on the number of JCRs, but other items like this one.
Thank you, Pablo. I think actually you have touched upon other questions as well.
Oh,
It's completely fine, and it was very helpful, your answer actually. So next question goes to Marie, which I hope technical issues are solved now.
I hope so. I don't know. I'm not sharing anything. I'm not sharing my screen anymore, so it should be working. Sorry for what happened earlier.
It's completely fine. This always happens. So the question is, so first of all, I want a very short sentence of why do you think open science is fundamental and very important, and how does open science impact on the research design process? That is, how is an investigation designed under the open science paradigm, and if it is different according to the field of knowledge?
I see. So regarding the first part of your question, as a librarian, just because I'm working in an institution whose main reason for being is to share knowledge, to disseminate knowledge, open science is like our mother tongue, I would say. You know, it's like a core value of libraries. And this is the viewpoint of library. But if you put yourself in the shoes of a researcher, for instance, if I were a researcher, I would like my research, my results to be known, to be shared. Science without communication doesn't serve for anything. Then beyond the notion of visibility, it's also a way to maximize the way public money is used. It's a pragmatic argument, but it counts today. And if you observe a little bit how our institutions tackle the theme of open science, very often they highlight the fact that citizens and society should have a return on investment. So the more data are shared, the more publications are accessible, more collaborations will be entailed, and more results will be obtained. You know, it's a more efficient way to do science. And then maybe something that has not been tackled so far is the integrity dimension. That is to say, the more you open your data, the more you make science transparent, the more peer reviewers can verify, can acknowledge that what you're saying is valid. And in the period that we are now facing with what we know with the COVID pandemic and what has been published on this theme, I think that the aspect of scientific integrity is of paramount importance. Then you asked me about how open science impact the different disciplines and the research design process. It has an impact on both sides, to me, a financial impact. And it's something that's quite huge for laboratories. We are now starting to pay for publishing. And it's a huge change in terms of how the ecosystem of scholar publications work. Historically, libraries were responsible for facilitating the access to scholar publication through subscriptions. And more and more, we are changing towards another paradigm, which is based on gold open access, which means that the author will be paying and no more the library. And it has a lot of financial impact according to the different disciplines. For instance, what I've been observing so far is that social sciences laboratories have way less money to dedicate to article processing charges to be able to publish open access rather than hard sciences, for instance. At least that's the debate we are having in France. And then open science is having as well a technical impact on the way you communicate science. That is to say, if a researcher, for instance, has to share his data alongside his article, it would take a lot of time because it takes a lot of preliminary steps in order to make your data understandable by anyone. You know, you have to use the right format, you have to use a lot of metadata, you have to pick a repository, sometimes you have to pay for depositing your data as well. And so you're dedicating a lot of time so that the others can understand what you're doing and can reuse it. And it can be a huge burden for researchers as well. It has a lot of positive impact, but it has a lot of risks as well.
Thank you very much, Marie, also for introducing a new perspective. And the next question goes for Esteban, and also a short sentence, please, about why open science is important, how it's going to shape research from now on. And the other question is, what is the role of co-creation in research projects implementing with the public?
Yeah, I think that the importance of co-creation basically comes from the idea that science and knowledge in general needs to have also a kind of democratic dimension. I mean, at the end, we are producing knowledge in society with people to make also a change in our lives. Sometimes it's not directly a material change, but also a change in how we get to know how we are or how is the world around us. So why this is important? Because citizen science is about citizenship, and this means that we work in communities. The role of the researcher is not just the only role that it's important, and neither the results that traditionally are important for scientists, like papers in highly cited journals. When we talk about citizen science, we are trying to balance different kind of interest and incentives. No, like for example, if you engage a community of people, they are not just, or basically they are not objects of our research, but they are subjects that are participating in the design of that research, or in the analysis, in the collection of data, in tagging that data, in the dissemination, etc. It's true that that co-creation doesn't have to take place in every phase of the scientific research or the citizen science project, but it's important that we don't forget that people in this kind of projects are always considered as subjects and not the object that we are studying somehow. So I think that maybe that's one of the most interesting and also tricky problems that we have, in how we can balance the different interests that we need to manage in one project like this. And co-creation at the end is at the base of this sort of project and science. And there is also a final idea that I would like to highlight. It's a great opportunity to connect our research from the very beginning with the society, and this will improve the impact and then the transfer of knowledge. So basically, those ideas that I wanted to say about this co-creation. Yeah, basically that's the idea, Anna.
Thank you, Esteban. So next question goes to Pilar. Also, please state in one sentence, why do you think open science is very important, and what are the if are there currently programs or projects that are already operating under the parameters of open science in your expertise?
Well, I do agree with the rest of my colleagues, of the rest of the panelists, when they say that open science is a way to make science in a better way, since it entails to make all the processes involved in the research activities more transparent and more open, which give us a stronger dimension of responsibility and integrity in our research activities. So, of course, I think it's the good way to do science, and there is a kind of feeling that that we all share, all the people that are here among the panelists. I do believe that we all share that open science is the good way of doing science, and this is something that is strongly underpinning the public policy development, which is that we do believe that this is making better science. Regarding the programs, the whole Horizon Europe program, which is, as you might be familiar with, is the 9th framework program for R&D from the European Commission, is strongly based on open science paradigm, since it has been declared many times by the European Commission members that open science is the new normal for researchers under the funding scheme of Horizon Europe program. It was Horizon 2020, which was the former framework program, which is still alive, since many projects that were funded by Horizon 2020 are still running. It was strongly based on open access, but Horizon Europe, the new framework program, in which no projects have been launched so far since it was started in January this very year, but the first projects will be launched next year, early next year. It is strongly based on open science. So the framework program is established in 3 different pillars, plus a horizontal one, which is called widening the participation and strengthening the European research area. Among those pillars, Pillar 1, Pillar 2, and Pillar 3, there is one program, which is the research infrastructure program, and the widening the participation and strengthening the European research area. These 2 programs are strongly based on open science practices, since open science is an activity that is going to be funded by these 2 pillars. Besides, all the beneficiaries are going to be evaluated, all the proposals are going to be evaluated strongly under open science criteria, and all the beneficiaries will be obliged to fulfill some open science provisions, which are more strict than what they were in Horizon 2020, specifically regarding open access. Specific items regarding intellectual property rights, licenses, persistent identifiers, and the role of repositories as the means to implement the open science policy has been reinforced in the open science provisions of the grant agreement that it has been prepared by the European Commission for Horizon Europe. At the national level, open science practices have been funded under the funding activities that have been launched by the National Agency for Funding the R&D activities, for the Agencia Estatal de Investigación, and also by FECID. I don't know if you are aware of the fact that we, FECID, are also a funding agency of the Plan Estatal funds. So we do have 2 specific funding activities. We do fund citizen science projects, and we also fund Maria de Guzman Call, which is specifically addressed for digital platforms that underpin open science practices. So there are strong funding calls and topics, both at the European level and at the national level, that are being waiting for you researchers to apply and get this funding. And besides, the open science practices are going to be compulsory both at the European level for beneficiaries at the European level and for beneficiaries at the national level.
Thank you, Pilar. So it's been a very interesting roundtable because given all the advantages that you are mentioning, I have to be honest and say that before preparing this panel, I wasn't an expert on open science myself, and I am finding this very interesting. And the question is if there are so many advantages like responsibility and integrity, etc., co-creation in science, increased visibility on sites, etc. Why there are people that resist to open science? This is not. This is more of a reflection, and if you want to comment on that, more welcome too. But let's go to the next question, which is directed to Marie. And how do libraries work with open science, which is relevant for PhD student?
Okay, thank you, Anna, for this question. What we are trying to do at the library is to fill the gap, because right now, I don't know how it is going in Spain, but in France at least, whether at the bachelor, master, or PhD level, it's not something that's very well known. And regarding the official incorporation of this, we could call it asignatura. It's like a discipline almost, because it needs a certain level of expertise. And so it is not included in their curriculum. That is to say, researchers and professors are not teaching students how open science works and why it is important. So it is something that libraries have been doing for a couple of years now. That is to say, holding training session with PhD students to explain to them a little bit what has been implemented at the European level, at the French level, and the impact on their activity. So this is the political aspect. That's a French law. There is a law that was passed in 2016. So we explain the impact and the rights that they have to preserve their articles or foster their accessibility through our institutional archive. Every university has its own institutional archive to maintain the access to scholar publication. And so we are teaching them how to use this platform. So there are some technical aspects to the session that we do with them. And then we explain to them as well the importance of data sharing. So there is the publication aspect, the data sharing aspect, and how open science could be an opportunity for them to be more visible. Then there are other ways that we tackle open science with PhD students. We invite them to present their thesis at the library in front of a panel of students. It's a good way for them to train before the official presentation of their thesis. And it's a good way for them to learn how to mediate, how to explain a technical, a very complex issue with words that could be understandable by the people. And then another way that we used is to record videos with PhD students who tell them, we call them data stories. And they so we put these videos online, and it's a way for them to explain the misadventures that they might have had with data and the way they use lab notebooks as well. That is mostly what we're doing with PhD students so far. I don't know if you have further questions.
Thank you, Marie. That was very helpful. Since I'm conscious of time, I'm going to pass the next question to Esteban, because I know he has to leave at sharp 5:30. So Esteban, if you could please speak us about what is the role of technology in citizenship research?
Yeah, I think in general, the importance of technology in citizen science is as important as in other kind of social interactions that we are living nowadays. For example, when we talk about political participation is also based nowadays in digital technologies, mainly, or in an important part. Why? Because basically it's an accessible way to connect people. It's a way to enlarge, to expand the kind of interactions that we can have in a project. Of course, it's also important to have physical gatherings, but at the end you also need a space where you can build knowledge and where you can continue collecting data, sharing resources, developing a kind of digital identity that at the end is going to help the preservation of the results and the process of the citizen science project. So just to give you also an invitation for the next edition that we do, just last week we had a course on building digital identities in science that was done by some colleagues like Daniel Torres from Yo Sigo Publicando, Nicolás Robinson, by me and others, and basically was about this. Technology at the end is almost, I mean, it's transforming everything, and it's the best way to make your project more and more relevant. And of course, and here I give the floor also to Pablo, if you can use free software technology more than, I mean, much better. No, for example, in our projects, we always use WordPress, for example, as our main platform, and that's great because it's also much more sustainable. And I mean, he told about that before.
Great, thank you, Esteban. Next question is for Pablo García, who can also address a question that has been dropped in the chat, if it's fine. So the question is, what is the contribution of open science in the construction and development of professional life? And also, as some people asked, what are the implications of open science in the process of evaluation of researchers, also known as ANECA, I guess?
Okay, so related to the first question, as me as a computer scientist, a programmer, because I'm doing everything in open, using a repository of source code like GitHub, GitLab, or other open source repositories, I already have a very good portfolio. If I wanted to work in a company, I will send a company my CV, but also my GitHub repository. It's GitHub is like the Facebook for programmers, and they will get all my code already available. So they could evaluate me, okay, this guy has done this and this one and this one. So this is not only for people in computer science. If you are using some kind of statistical experimentations with R or Python or whatever, you need to be a computer scientist to use this kind of software. You can share everything in your repository and add to your CV in order to apply for a position in a company. Real companies, because I'm talking about my field, that is computer science and program development. They will look more than at your repository that your grades. If it's a good company, okay, you have a very good grades. But we want to see your repository, and this is if you are working with some kind of code, I encourage you to share, because you won't have your repository only for scientists, but it's also your portfolio. But also, it's many people will search for some kind of software as Esteban said, and many free software includes a text saying, okay, if you are using this software, please cite us using this reference. For example, one colleague of University of Cadiz has this bibliometrics software called Estimat, that is free software. And in the page of this program, you can it says, please cite this reference if you are using my software. And he works in the bibliometric area. It's not in computer science area. And I think that will be a good thing to earn if you are doing a good thing to earn if you are doing this kind of stuff. Everything you do open will make you to be more not as dispersed as working and writing several papers here and there, and paper in notebooks, not scientific papers. You will get more skills. I think at least that's my impression as a computer scientist. If I use this development process, I also can integrate the software with some kind of automatic compilation systems and error detections, and there are a lot of bigger process in the not only just but by merely publishing your code. There are several now in computer science this kind of new role called DevOps, that is not only to program but also see the code of other people, and that you will get a lot of good skills if you are going to work in a company. But also, and related with the second question, I already mentioned these examples. When I applied for this position as professor, as I am right now in Granada, because I applied to a lot of universities, I can assure you that I applied, probably a lot of people like you applied to a lot of universities. But the University of Granada was one of the first universities that has a specific assessment in the scoring system to be a professor. And it says in transference, if you have any free software used and downloaded, please attach some kind of identification so we can evaluate this, and you will get some points when they are evaluating your CV. But I don't know if maybe Pilar could mention us if maybe she knows more what because you know ANECA is moving not only measuring the number of papers but the quality and the impact of these papers. So maybe if your paper has I don't know 10 citations, but the software in your paper has 2,000 downloads. Okay, a lot of people are using your software. Maybe they are not citing the paper you published with this software, but you are making an impact. For example, this colleague I mentioned that created this program called Estimat. I know that this program is being used in a lot of bibliometric studies because it's very easy to use and this software has a lot of downloads. So at least the University of Granada has assessed in some way this kind of open science stuff. But also in the Arqus project has an action line specific and a working package only for the assessment of in the scientific career. So I think this could be we will be seeing more examples like this one in the future.
Yeah, maybe Hildrun can or sorry, Pilar, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to respond to Pablo about he mentioned ANECA. You might know that ANECA and FECIT are two institutions that were created in the same year. We are both in our 20th anniversary this year, and we work together we have some initiatives, collaboration initiatives, and we have been working together for a long time regarding also open access and open science practices. ANECA has a specific structure that is different from FECIT, meaning that they are built upon the contributions of researchers that are the people working inside the commissions that do the evaluation exercises. So it's kind of of an empty institution that is being fulfilled by the person month devoted by specific universities and research centers to do the evaluation exercises, and they are guided by specific directives, but in the sense that but they are not that strict, meaning that they have large degrees of freedom to take decisions regarding what they accept as good science and what they do not accept as good science. Having said that, ANECA is setting the principles and the instructions for the commissions to fulfill, and they have different programs for evaluation. They have the program called PEP, which is for higher staff in the universities, the academia program, which is for civil servants at the universities, and they have CMAI that evaluates sexenios, both research and transference sexenios. And these two programs address both universities and research centers, not only universities. They have been doing, and I know that because I've been working with them, strong efforts to adapt the call for sexenio de transferencia to the open science requirements. It has been difficult, and it's still being difficult to measure specific activities that are being done by researchers, like what you say, Pablo, the developing software, specific software, how to measure that and how to give credit to researchers for what is the role they play in the communities of developers is very difficult indeed. They were working last year, during the whole year in this. They haven't arrived any conclusion so far, but I know they are on the way to do that. And regarding scientific credits for researchers, they are trying to abandon journal impact factor in a progressive way. Since they cannot change the rules of the game at the middle of the party, since many careers of researchers have been designed based on journal impact factor. So it is not that easy to change the whole rules of the game dramatically. So they are doing that, they are doing their best, but I just want, of course, I do not work in ANECA. I work with them, but I do not work in there. But I am aware of the efforts that are being done by the institution, and I am very much aware of how difficult it is to change behavior of specific researchers that do form and they belong to commissions, since they have the capacity to take the decisions within specific rules, but they have a strong capacity for changing the rules.
Thank you, Pilar. I think you actually mentioned a very important point, which is the careers that has been designed following former criteria that are changing, and that is always tough, right? In a change of paradigm.
Yeah, but I just want to mention that situation is not exclusive for Spain. The European Commission is facing that situation themselves too. When you go to the European Commission and they set the open science provisions for the grant agreements of Horizon 2020 and Horizon Europe, then they have to go to the Research Evaluation Agency, the REA, or the European Research Council Evaluation Agency, and the people that form the commissions are also old-fashioned. So the situation, the difficulty for changing the paradigm is not something that only happens in Spain. It is happening even in the European Commission, even though they have been leading the open science movement. So this is for us not to have the impression that we are always late, since we are not really that late compared with the rest of the countries and compared with Europe.
I see. Thank you, Pilar. I am very conscious of time because we should be finishing as this session should finish at 5:30. So I'm going to ask few questions. If you could please say a sentence about them, because I think some of them are easily they can be easily answered in 30 seconds. So the first time I'm just if you can unmute yourself and answer, it's fine. So first is, I use geographic information systems in my research. I have not found open access repositories to send my data to be accessible with specific geographical platforms. And so repositories, he says, usually receive PDF, MP, GPF, or similar data. Could you suggest anyone that could help me?
I just write that in the chat while we're you talking. I just answer that. Okay. But the idea is there are several types of repositories that accept every kind of data. I don't know any specific for GIS. Maybe there are somewhere that you can search by specific that work on this could search very easily. But you can use an institutional repository like OpenAire inside DigiBook in the University of Granada. There are several institutional repositories. You can also use Figshare. In Figshare you can share anything. You can put a .zip with everything with all your docs there and upload it and describe the data set. And you will get a DOI, so you can share this data set, or even Safe Creative, that is another repository, but it's digitally signed. So in future, if someone wants to steal your data or something, you have the proof that the data is yours. But my advice, I think it was Gabriela, the one that answered, is to use some of these repositories and also create a web page entitled the data set of whatever, because everybody are looking for data sets directly searching in Google and other engines. So I will set GIS data sets. If you create a web page with your data set, people will find it faster sometimes than in specific repositories. But the good thing is also you can use several repositories at the same time if you want.
I would also suggest Zenodo with Z. It has been created by the European Commission and it's indexed by OpenAIRE, which is the aggregator of repositories. Regarding Figshare, I think it's a good choice, but we have to keep in mind that it's a proprietary repository, so we might find a situation that they end up selling ourselves our data as commercial publishers are doing now. So I would rather go for a public service like Zenodo.
Thank you both for the practical tips. Do not forget that you can reach them out if you have further questions or if you haven't typed the places right. So next question is that poses a problem, which is that well-regarded, highly ranked journals are not always open access. Would you recommend to lower the quality or target less high impact journals to make research more accessible? Yeah, Pilar?
There is like a very extended confusion regarding the business model of journals and the impact factor of journals. Journals are in most of the cases are business, and they can be built on the two different business models, either subscription access or open access. Subscription access are the journals that we can access through our library services, and open access are those that freely online access, and they are in most of the cases they are based on payment by authors, not by readers. But that has nothing to do with the indexing quality of the journals. The databases, the commercial databases for impact and references, WAS and Scopus, do index journals with criteria that has nothing to do with the business model. Right now, many commercial publishers are flipping the model from subscription access into open access through what it has been called transformative agreements, which means that countries or consortia within countries, like the case of Spain, have been flipping the money that usually was devoted to subscription access journals into the open access model. So the very same amount of money that was paid for those journals to give us access to the content has been given for our researchers to be able to publish for free, and then the content to be open. but the rate of indexation that was an Scopus apply has been still during this year. So the reasons why Elsevier through Scopus or Clarivate through WOS decide to index journals has nothing to do with open access or subscription access model. The reasons why journals are indexed sometimes do have something to do with quality, but most of the cases do not have a straight relation with quality. It is understood that quality is the only reason behind the indexation process, but it is not. There are strong bias regarding geographical areas, language, and disciplines that explain why some journals have been indexed and why some others have not been indexed. So in my understanding, researchers should follow what the incentives from the evaluation agencies are pushing them to do. If ANECA, which is the main agency for rewards and incentives in Spain, if ANECA is going to evaluate your curriculum looking exclusively to the impact factor of your journal, of course, we researchers will be pushed to publish in high impact factor journals, despite of the fact that our funder is asking us to upload in a repository to archive a copy in open access, which is something different. Publish and archiving work is not the same. The publication is something that journals do with our work. But archiving and depositing in open access is something that we do through repositories. So one element, the journals, is the element for publication, and repositories is the element for visualization in open access. So our funders here in Spain, both the European Commission and the Agencia Estatal de Investigación, is telling us to archive a copy of the published version of our work. So if ANECA keeps measuring us through the impact factor, I think it is logical that we go to maximize the impact factor of the journal where we publish. But please keep in mind that the business model of the journal has nothing to do with whether or not those journals have been indexed. And most of the big journals and most of the big commercial editorials, like commercial publishers like Elsevier, Springer Nature, Wiley, Sage, American Chemical Society, Taylor and Francis, Hindawi, and so on, most of them are flipping their business model into open access model because it is far more profitable than what it was so far. In my opinion, in my professional opinion, it is even worse for us to go to the open access model. Right now, we are more dependent on commercial publishers, but this is another debate and another roundtable. But it is in the interest of the commercial journals to flip to the open access business model since it is more profitable.
Thank you, Pilar. That was very helpful. We are going to the end of the session. I would like to know if Hildrun can jump in. I am sorry about the technical problems we had in the beginning. So if you want to close the session, which was co-organized with Arqus, and you can comment about what you was about to say in the beginning, and please close the session, it would be very, very nice.
Thank you, Anna, and sorry to all for not being able to present my first things about Arqus and open science. So yes, just to give a very short overview now, things in Arqus. Well, we have in the Erasmus Plus project open science or openness task force that works on strategies how to implement open science into our Arqus institutions. And here we worked on a position paper where we established common aims that we follow in open science, citizen science, and open innovation, and also worked on measures to foster the transformation towards open universities. And this position paper will be published next year in April. I hope so, at least. And then we have another project, namely the Horizon 2020 project, Arqus Research and Innovation. And here we have a whole challenge that is named Open to Society. And we have two different work packages here. The one is the Open Science Agenda, which works on values, criteria, and open source information for coordinating the open science implementation process within Arqus. And then we have another work package named Stakeholder Engagement, and here we work on the toolbox for open research agenda setting. This is published already. You can find it. I can write it in the chat anyway. And there we also will test these tools next year, and then give an evaluation on how this works, applying the toolbox. And I think we touched on a very broad view of open science with very interesting aspects. So thank you very much. I've learned a lot too. I hope it was very interesting for all early stage researchers. And I'm very happy that I was able to not starting. So thank you very much for this opportunity. And then I wish all the best for the next issue within JIFFI, and see you soon. Thank you.
Thank you all. Paso al español de nuevo. Nos vemos en la siguiente sesión de la JIFFI. Muchas gracias por haber atendido a esta discusión tan interesante de Open Science y nos vemos en la siguiente sala. Chao.
Gracias.